This one here's got me a little bit more nervous than the others.
Hurricane Helene batters Florida with strong winds. The concerns tonight about catastrophic storm surge and flooding.
It's like a bad dream. As soon as you get cleaned up for one storm, 6 months later, you're getting hit again.
We are announcing campaign finance, bribery, and conspiracy charges against Eric Adams.
For the first time, a sitting New York City mayor is indicted, accused of illegally accepting luxury trips worth tens of thousands of dollars.
We are not surprised. We expected this.
And tonight's Eye on America, see how officials in Ghana are trying to crack down on a crime that's robbing Americans of millions.
What kind of people do they prey on?
Caucasian male. They are elderly people who are quite lonely.
The CBS Evening News starts now. Good evening, and thank you for joining us as we brace for the monster hurricane set to slam Florida just hours from now. And as we come on the air, there is breaking news. Helene just became an extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane, and it is barreling toward landfall in Florida's Big Bend region. Now, that could mean catastrophic winds and rain, storm surges of up to 20 feet, and historic flooding. This view, taken during a flyover today by the International Space Station, shows how massive this storm is. It's roughly 800 miles wide and 1,000 miles long. We have teams spread throughout the storm zone tonight. In addition to new information on Helene's path and its strength, we'll begin tonight with CBS's Manuel Bojorquez in Tampa. And Manny, I can see the conditions are deteriorating where you are. What are you seeing?
That's right. Good evening, Nora. As you can see, the Tampa Bay area is getting battered right now. And what we have noticed that is significant is that the water that has been lapping up over this seawall here is not going back into the bay. It is accumulating here. So this is the beginning of the expected storm surge, that 5 to 8 feet. When you combine it with the high tide tonight, we're told that the water will definitely come up to the level of these tables here and likely above it and cover this whole area. Already officials have had to shut down some major roads and bridges throughout the Tampa Bay area. What does that mean? Well, for anybody who did not heed mandatory evacuation orders, well, their options to get to higher ground have probably run out tonight. They will have to ride this out in their homes, and there is a point where officials will not be able to get to you should you need to be rescued because of the danger that the water and the wind poses to them. You know, forecasters keep telling us over and over, yes, the wind speed and the intensity of the hurricane is important and destructive around the eye, but the water around greater areas, including here in Tampa Bay, that is what is the #1 killer during these storms. So we are going to practice what we preach, and now that the water, the flooding here is starting to get significant, Nora, we're going to toss it back to you and get out of here.
Manny Bojorquez, please, you and the team stay safe. Thank you very much for being there. CBS's Jason Allen is 200 miles up the coast in Crawfordville, Florida, close to where Helene will make landfall. And what are you seeing where you are, Jason?
Good evening, Nora. In these last minutes of sunlight, we are really starting to see the clouds push across the sky now. We can hear the wind gusting in the pine trees and the rain becoming increasingly heavy. The center of the storm still offshore, but if it keeps on its current track, it is forecast to pass directly over our position here tonight. The reason that we are not up against the water is because this is an area where we could see 15 to 20 foot storm surge. That could rush all the way up into this area, even a few miles inland. It would cut off some of these escape routes from the coast. And Governor Ron DeSantis tonight had a message for anybody who is still thinking there might be time to drive away from their positions.
But don't put yourself at risk. We have fatalities on the roadways in hazardous conditions almost every storm, and those can be avoidable.
The sheriff here has warned people that a major intersection just a mile or so down the road from where we are could end up under 9 feet of water. And in a neighboring county, the sheriff has told anyone who is staying to send in their names, their pictures, and write their social security numbers on their arms in case they need to be identified.
So dangerous, Jason Allen. You stay safe as well. Thank you. Let's get the latest now on Helene's path and potential impacts from CBS's Lonnie Quinn. Good evening, Lonnie.
Good evening, Nora. I apologize for the picture behind me. I know it's shaky, but this is a live shot right now in Fort Myers, Florida. This is 200 miles from the storm. This storm is enormous. Now, for me to give you a pretty good vantage point, I want to bring up the entire map of the United States. And what I want you at home to do right now, focus on the state of Florida, also focus on the state of Maine. All right? From Maine to Florida. In fact, it's from the Canadian Maritimes all the way down to Havana, Cuba. You are wrapped in cloud cover associated with Helene. But cloud cover is not going to hurt anybody, right? But winds will hurt folks. And look at this. The wind field, as this comes on shore, it's put at least tropical storm force winds down anywhere from Key West had a 55-mile-per-hour gust. Tallahassee is going to see wind gusts above 100 miles per hour, possibly 110. Even Atlanta, Georgia, so far inland, wind gusts could be 70 miles per hour. That's the sort of damage, that's the sort of wind that can do a lot of damage to property out there. And that's just one of the concerns. That's just the wind. There's still storm surge that's going to be a big player.
Well, Lonnie, let's talk about that because, as we know, a lot of this flooding, storm surge can be extremely dangerous, and it's going to reach inland. How much so? What do we know?
Okay, the storm surge, Nora, just to be real clear on this, storm surge is right at the coast, all right? That's the storm pushing all that water onshore. The flooding that you're referring to is inland because of the rain. Rain is going to be enormous. We're talking a place like maybe Atlanta all the way into the Carolinas could be seeing a half a foot of rain as the storm continues to just train through that area. So, yeah, there's a lot to be concerned about. Like you said, freshwater flooding from the rain, storm surge, and the winds. This has it all.
Lonnie Quinn, thanks for that information. Now to a historic indictment in New York City. Mayor Eric Adams is resisting calls to step down after federal prosecutors laid out explosive corruption charges against him in a 57-page court document. Adams, a Democrat and former police captain, is now the city's first mayor to be charged with federal crimes, including bribery. And he could face a judge as early as tomorrow to enter a plea. As CBS's Nikki Batiste reports, the allegations go back years before Adams took control of America's largest city.
The foreign money, the corporate money, the bribery, the years of concealment is a grave breach of the public's trust.
United States Attorney Damian Williams says New York City Mayor Eric Adams' alleged bribery scheme involving at least one government official and several businessmen in Turkey began nearly a decade ago.
The mayor sought and accepted well over $100,000 in luxury travel benefits. He told the public he received no gifts, even though he was secretly being showered with them.
Prosecutors say Adams used straw donors or third parties to accept illegal foreign campaign donation. Those contributions led to $10 million in public matching funds to his campaign. They also allege that in September 2021, a Turkish official told Adams it was his turn to repay them, asking Adams to pressure the New York Fire Department to allow a recently built Turkish skyscraper in Manhattan to open without being inspected.
What stuck out to you about the indictment?
The gravity of the charges, the complexity of the scheme, and the efforts that went right up until recently to conceal the alleged crimes.
Adams is charged with 5 counts of bribery, fraud, and soliciting illegal foreign campaign donations.
It's an unfortunate day, and it's a painful day.
If convicted, he could face up to 45 years in prison. Adams maintains his innocence.
And I ask New Yorkers to wait to hear our defense before making any judgments.
New York's Democratic governor is the only person with the power to remove Adams from office. A spokesperson told us the governor is monitoring the situation. When Mayor Adams spoke outside his official residence here today, the crowd around him started chanting, "Resign, resign." Nora?
Nikki Batiste in New York City. Thank you, Nikki. Today, Vice President Kamala Harris flatly rejected Donald Trump's call for a quick end to the war in Ukraine, calling it a proposal for surrender. She spoke after a meeting with Ukraine's President. Vladimir Zelensky came here to Washington to shore up U.S. support. But CBS's Weijia Jiang reports he finds himself right in the middle of the presidential campaign.
Two presidential nominees, two starkly different approaches to handling the Ukraine war.
My support for the people of Ukraine is unwavering.
Ukraine is gone. It's not Ukraine anymore.
Former President Trump this week criticized the Ukrainians for not cutting a deal with Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the war. Today, Vice President Harris met with President Zelensky and said the focus should be on stopping Putin.
If we allow aggressors like Putin to take land with impunity, they keep going.
The administration announced more security assistance to Ukraine and promised Zelensky additional funds before the end of President Biden's term, easing concerns that Trump could cut the money off if he wins.
We have to keep pressure on Russia to stop the war and to make truly lasting and just peace.
Trump said he will meet with Zelensky tomorrow.
And I will be meeting with him.
But it could be tense given the comments Zelensky made in the latest New Yorker magazine, saying, "My feeling is that Trump doesn't really know how to stop the war, even if he might think he knows how."
I disagree, but I will say this. I believe I will be able to make a deal between President Putin and President Zelensky quite quickly.
Well, this is how we receive our steel.
Republicans are also fuming over Zelensky's visit to an arms factory in battleground Pennsylvania on Sunday, accompanied only by Democrats.
We're in the middle of a hotly contested national election, and we don't need foreign countries intervening.
Today, Zelensky's priority was to get permission to use U.S.-supplied long-range missiles on Russian soil. A U.S. official tells CBS News Biden is unlikely to approve, in part because the Pentagon has assessed it would not change the trajectory of the war. Nora?
That's a significant development. Vijay Jang, thank you very much. Well, there's no let-up to the fighting in the Middle East, with the potential Israeli ground invasion of Lebanon looming. Well, today, Israel turned down a U.S.-backed plan for a 3-week ceasefire, and Hezbollah kept up its attacks, firing dozens of rockets toward Israel. CBS's Imtiaz Tayeb has late developments from Beirut.
Hezbollah rockets firing into Israeli territory in this just-released propaganda video. But the powerful Iranian-backed group's vast arsenal is no match for Israel's military might. And yet, another one of its top commanders was assassinated in southern Beirut. In just under a week, Lebanese health officials say over 600 people have been killed, including 23 people in a single strike today in the eastern Bekaa Valley, according to a local official. But in the early hours of this morning, there was a glimmer of hope, after the United States and its allies unveiled a 21-day joint ceasefire proposal to temporarily end the brutal violence. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, seen here as he arrived in New York for the UN General Assembly, quickly rejected the plan, saying Israel would keep fighting with full force.
And tonight, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is warning of an all-out war, saying it would be devastating for both Israel and Lebanon, and that a diplomatic solution, not a military one, is the only way to end this. Nora.
Imtiaz Tayeb, thank you very much. Tonight, our series Anything for Money features the story of an American doctor who lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in one of these online romance scams. That's next. Tonight, more of our series on internet romance scams targeting Americans, with a look at an elaborate scheme that cost one victim a whopping $700,000. Our year-long investigation took us to 3 continents, including Africa, where scammers working in secret rooms convince victims across the globe to send them their hard-earned money. Here's CBS's Deborah Patta with tonight's Eye on America.
Operating out of underground boiler rooms across Ghana, online criminal syndicates prey on elderly Americans, running sophisticated scams that break hearts and empty bank accounts. They pretend to fall in love in order to steal their victims' life savings. And as this fraudster known as Kohler admitted, there are fleeting moments of remorse.
Sometimes we take money from people and feel like, oh my God, how are they going to feel?
But in the end, it's all about survival.
Most young guys, if this game had not come, they have to pull the trigger on people and steal from them.
They may not be putting a gun to people's heads, but the cruelty of this crime is no less devastating, leaving victims emotionally bereft and financially ruined.
Is this fair?
Gerald Pangpari heads up the anti-money laundering unit in Ghana's Organised Crime Office.
We have a lot of unemployed youth People who are talented, who have gone to school and they don't have anything to do.
What kind of people do they prey on?
Caucasian male, they are elderly people who are quite lonely.
Ghanaian scammers told us they prefer targeting men as they're easier to trap and less likely to report it because of their deep shame. We found one such scam. The victim, a 75-year-old American radiologist we're calling John, not his real name. The syndicate boss, 34-year-old Alfred Kwame Aivo, and the accomplice, a mysterious blonde woman. John declined an interview, but we know he believed he was in love with a woman called Grace Erskine, an Australian living in the US. In fact, he was actually texting with syndicate boss Alfred Aivo, posing as Grace. Aivo controlled the scam, which included the extreme measure of hiring the mysterious blonde woman to play the part of Grace for any in-person meetings John insisted on, as these text messages reveal. Aivo offers to pay her $100,000, but the woman wants more than double that, threatening, "Without me, everyone gets nothing. I could always call and say it was a scam." But she doesn't. And pretending to be Grace, she visited the radiologist in the US, even meeting his family, and claimed she'd inherited a Ghanaian gold mine that John was offered a stake in to secure their future together. These texts show the scammer asking her to meet John in Ghana, insisting it's just 1 week plus TLC. She doesn't seem keen to get physical. Whatever happened, John did travel to Ghana and stayed here at the same hotel as Grace in Accra, while syndicate boss Aivo posed as their driver. And John was so enamored with Grace, he unwittingly paid over $700,000 for a fraudulent investment in a non-existent gold mine. The money was a red flag for Ghanaian detectives, as Aivo was unemployed.
We realized that the person did not have any form of work that is commensurate with the amount of money that were coming into his account.
Aivo was arrested but died of an unknown illness before serving prison time. The mysterious blonde woman posing as Grace had vanished until CBS News tracked her down last week outside Sydney, Australia. Her real name is Rebecca Jade Silk.
Are you sorry? Do you have anything to say to his family?
When confronted, she did not deny or confirm the allegations, keeping her mouth shut and her head down. Silk has not been charged with any crimes. She remains a person of interest for Ghanaian police, but she has a lot to answer for, as Ghana and the US battle a crime that's reached epidemic proportions, with scammers around the world willing to do anything for money. For Eye on America, Deborah Patter, New York.
Tonight, the Sunshine State is getting pummeled by Hurricane Helene, now at Category 4 and the most powerful ever to hit Florida's Big Bend region. This massive storm's reach will be widespread. Our coverage will continue through the night and by daylight, and we'll see where the damage Helene roared ashore. And that is tonight's CBS Evening News. I'm Nora O'Donnell. Stay safe and good night.